Like you said, my name is Paul Blankenship. I'm Director of Engineering for Hamilton Beach Proctor Silex. Sure, you may have heard of our company, or both of those companies, but I want to give you a little bit of history. Actually, I'm going to give you an overview of our company. I want to tell you what our dilemma was before critical chain, what changes we made, review some results, and maybe you'll help me draw some conclusions. So who is HBPS, or Hamilton Beach Proctor Silex? Hamilton Beach is a company that was started in 1904 when Lewis Hamilton and Chester Beach collaborated to make a small electric motor, and it could be used on lots of different applications. It was the first universal motor. It was first used for a drink mixer and a massager. This year, we're celebrating our 100th anniversary, in case you couldn't do that math. Proctor Silex also has a history that goes back to 1920. It's a company that had a lot of firsts. The first pop-up toaster, first cord-attached iron, and these two companies were brought together in 1990 by our parent company, which is NACCO Industries, North American Coal Corporation. They were merged in 1990 and became one of the leading suppliers of small kitchen appliances in the world, or at least in this country. Now we do about $500 million in sales every year, ship between 35 and 40 million products, mostly in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. And how do we sell? We sell to all kinds of different channels. Of course, I got across the top, the mass market channel, Walmart, Target, and Kmart. They are the biggest and most important customers that we have. But we do sell to a lot of other customers in drug channel, grocery channel, wholesale clubs, hardware stores, and department stores. So what was our situation? Well, we were moving into a lot of new categories. The mass market, I told you, was the most important market. We had some new brands. GE was coming along about the time we were looking at our problem. We had lots of competition, direct competition from some of the people who used to supply us would supply directly to our customers. So lots of competition from Asia, lower cost manufacturers, really making it hard on us. We had decisions being made by the buyers at these mass markets and other places very late in the game. Yeah, we think we'll take this product, but we're not sure yet. We'll let you know next month. A month goes by, we'll let you know 2 weeks from now. And we had to make investments in order to make these products in the time that they had. So that by virtue of not making a decision, they were demanding that we had shorter cycle times. Shorter product life cycles. Well, even after they decided to take it, sometimes they would take it and say, oh, we're only going to put it in half our stores. And sometimes they would take it and say, well, we're only going to put it in there this fall and then take it back out. Sometimes our products are around for 12 years, sometimes they're around for 1 year. But on average, the life cycles are going down because of this competition. But we did have a few factors that were going to make more new products possible. We traditionally were a manufacturing company, but we had moved almost all of our manufacturing from the States to Mexico, and then had started to move it from Mexico to China. We were not manufacturing ourselves in China. We were buying these products from usually established suppliers, sometimes not established suppliers. So they had a cost advantage, which meant we had more opportunities. We could compete in more markets or in more categories. And as a result of going to those places, they also had much lower capital expenditures, approximately 10% of the old capital expenditure. So if we were going to manufacture a product ourselves, it might cost $2 million. If we're going to have it sourced in Asia, $200,000. So we could do 10 times as many projects with the same amount of capital. How do we manage projects at that time? Lots of different ways. But we usually started with a Microsoft project plan. A lot of the guys had developed their own templates that they used, but each team, we had product teams that one does cooking products, one does mixing products. They would have their own templates, and then they'd modify them just to get milestones. We had developed a new products database that had all those milestone dates stuck into one database, so that every week we could go in and see if this was done or not, and usually it wasn't done. Anyway, the updates to this database were inaccurate and very painful. There were only a few people that had access to it, and really all the burden was on the engineers to put the dates in. And every week before their meeting, they'd call around and get updates to the dates. I think there were 4 columns in the database: original due date, revised due date, latest due date, and when it actually happened. There was some automation, but it was not very good. And I must say I helped create that database. Anyway, what we had was probably the same information overload that all of you have been through. How were priorities set? We did have a project priority ranking system, which was a start. It used net present value of the project, some factors from engineering that simulated resource loading and how difficult the project might be, and the probability of success factors. So we'd have a list of all the projects that we were doing or thinking about doing, and we would know which ones were most important according to this algorithm that was created. That was really used only if you had the top 2 or 3 projects, and you used that on the common resources or the shared resources to beat them over the head and say, I've got the #1 project. If you were down lower, you kind of ignored the fact that there was such a priority system, and you used these other things. Like, why don't you do this? I know you like doing it. I know you don't like working on that project. Why don't you work on mine? Who took me out to lunch last week? I think I'll work on that. And ring ring, or the modern version of the squeaky wheel now with cell phones. People will call you up at any time, in any place, no matter where you are, and tell you, you should be working on my task. That still happens. And then the advantage of sourcing our products so that we could do more projects led to some other issues. Actually, our engineers would now be managing more, and I had doing less. I guess that's true. Managers don't do much. I'm a manager, so. Industrial design on these products is done in our place in the United States. But the detailed design of all the components is done at our suppliers. Our engineers provide oversight and expertise. The suppliers don't really understand necessarily our products, how we use them, don't understand our customer requirements, and don't understand the pitfalls of product design. I think someone talked about reusing engineering earlier. They don't have anything to reuse. They don't necessarily have the experience in developing a toaster that we have. So our people would really be tracking all of these projects, and prioritization of the task was critical. So we know we needed more new projects or new products. We weren't going to get any increase in headcount. We talked about that earlier. Nobody's increasing headcount these days, especially this was in 2001, I guess. And we had a lot of difficulty managing what we had already, so something had to change. So we implemented critical chain project management in all of our new product development projects. We selected Concerto. I'll explain a little bit about why later. That led to task level priorities, as you all know. and buffer management. These are the things that we implemented, and I'm going to show you some of the results. First of all, responsiveness. We were challenged to have 4 new toasters. We were manufacturing toasters, but we were going to start sourcing toasters. And we had to have 4 new toasters for one of those top 3 customers up there, and they had to have it by March 15th, or we didn't need them at all, and the whole toaster business was going to hell, and we would never make toasters again. That was the picture painted by marketing, I guess. Anybody from marketing here?
So would you say you were toast?
Most of us, myself included, thought it could not be done. And I was toast. For about 5 years, I designed toasters, so I didn't think it could be done. But we planned aggressively using critical chain project management. Ajay encouraged me to try it. We planned them for less than 9 months in duration from the time we kind of had a sketch of what it was supposed to be until it was in the market. And we made the dates on all 4 of those models. You know, we did this while we still had another, I don't know, 60 or 70 projects in play. We didn't just focus on those projects. Predictability increased. It's still not where I would like it to be. But you can see that we're now, at least since we implemented Project Flow, that's the right words now, or critical chain or concerto, we have improved. Throughout the years we had gotten worse and gotten better, but I think the important thing to look at is the number of early projects. We never finished projects early before. It wasn't allowed. It could not happen. We still fight with that somewhat because when we get to the end of our projects and kind of planning takes over. I'm talking about production planning. When it's making that transition from being a new product to being an existing product, planning takes over and says, oh no, we don't need that yet. Please bring some in. Let's find out if there's any problems at the end of this supply chain. But we have successfully done that on quite a few projects. I'm not sure, I guess you have this in your book, but let's call late 1 week on time. So we're 69%. But within a month, almost up to 90%, and the number that were extremely late has gone way down. Still not perfect, not anywhere near where I would like it to be, but getting better. Where we saw the most significant increase, though, is in throughput. Now, year 2 is a projection. I don't know that we'll make all those. Some of those may die on the vine. But our first year of Project Flow, we completed over 50 major projects. And prior to that, the most we had done was in 2000 when we had 11 new GE products when they were launching that line. And we had 38 major new products that year. The subsequent year, we had a reduction in workforce, I think is the right terminology. And we never really increased our resources back up to the level we were before. So we nearly doubled. If we complete what we've said we're going to do this coming year, we would have doubled our throughput while reducing the resources from 2000. Some of the feedback. Our test lab manager is it's a shared resource. Almost every major project goes through our test lab for validation or for UL testing. Said that it was awesome. It's easy to see everything he had to do, and it's prioritized. He'd never had that before. And he has to work with every project manager on every different product line, and he was the one that used to get a lot of phone calls and visits and free lunches. He may be upset about the free lunches, but he's real happy to see the work that he has. Highlighting areas that need to be addressed. There's a lot of problems that you probably have seen. You knew there were problems, and now they get brought out into the open, and you have to address them. We still are trying to address the front end of our process and the definition of a product and a project, and that's an area that's been highlighted by traveling up the vertical left-hand line on the trend chart. I know none of you have seen that, right? So that's our results. I do not have any time to market data right now. It's been hard for me to measure. We have different size projects and different issues with that. That's something I'm trying to get my arms around, is how to measure the actual, when did it start, and I know when it finishes. So I do not have any of that data yet, but I'm working on that. Why theory of constraints? I guess sometime before, around 2000, engineering management, several people within engineering management, not including myself, went to a seminar where they heard Dr. Goldratt speak. And they came back fired up and said, this stuff is awesome, this is what we should be using. Couldn't figure out how to do it, though. I was in business school at the time, so I wasn't able to go to that seminar. And I was exposed to Dr. Goldratt's theories by being forced to read The Chain, the Goal and Critical Chain. But I enjoyed both those books because I had lived all of those experiences in manufacturing and in projects. And I thought maybe this could work. I attended a management roundtable conference, and there was a guy there who led us through an exercise. It wasn't the bead experiment, but it was one with spinners and projects and times. And I said, this is the way we have to do this now. Still couldn't figure out how to do it, but it sure did make sense. It was time to do something with this theory in project management. So I knew that theory of constraints was the way to go. How are we going to do it? Let's develop our own system. Well, I tried that and it didn't work too well. And this was even more complex than the last one. So maybe we could find one that works. Well, we had a division of NACO called NACO Material Handling that had bought and used Concerto. And I heard about this through one of our board members from NACO. So I took a trip up and visited. Lillian's here today. She showed me all about it and how it worked, and we followed their lead and selected Concerto from Realization. So we'd had success in the family. It was one database. We looked at some other systems that were going to require only one person could be in a plan at a time doing things, and it required the engineers to do a lot more updating. And there wasn't one database that collected all that information. Although I had been told it was the Cadillac of systems, when I went out to find out what other systems were out there, I found that there were some softwares that were free because they wanted to, consultants, consult with you for the rest of your life, I think. They wouldn't give me a price. It was, I will give you the software, but we would need to be with you for 6 months, a year, however long, and we're retraining and all this stuff. So I couldn't calculate the cost. They wouldn't give me a quote. But mainly because it was an intelligent system, the algorithms that these guys developed made a lot of your decisions for you. The other systems that I looked at, the engineers were still going to have to figure out, or the project manager or the task manager might still have a list of tasks and not necessarily know how to prioritize it. So I think the fact that it gave us task level priorities is what sold me. Our implementation started in February of 2003 with 4 or 5 of us in a room going through some basic training. We went live in April with 40 projects. We kind of did the all or nothing, but we did it based on a date. We did have some projects that were very close to being completed. We did not put them in the system. So in April, we said the deadline is July 1st. Anything that's going to be in the warehouse by July 1st won't go into the system. Everything else will, and we started with major projects. We have derivative projects, which we did not load at that time. We loaded those a couple of months later. Now all projects are required, all new products are required to be in there. We had extensive training, trained 50 or 60 people, had support from Realization involved in that training. Our current status, we have about 150 projects loaded, or active. We have a lot more than that loaded. 150 of them have active tasks on them today. Our goals for implementation were to deliver more projects with the same resources. I think we've done that. Deliver projects on time. We have done better at that. Still need to improve that. Shorten development cycle time. Although I don't have data overall, the examples of the toasters, I think, do say that it's possible and that we have done it. Be able to perform what-if analysis. And this is part of the pipelining process, and that's been invaluable when we meet with marketing and they say, we want this and we want that. Well, you can have this if you move this. We could never have those conversations before. We just didn't have them. We have them, but nobody would believe it. And to have one integrated project management system to take the place of the one that I tried to create that didn't work.